talking about slide guitar, and for reference sake, I'm in open E tuning, which is just going to be E, B, E, G sharp, B, and E. So it's your basic E chord shape already on the guitar, which is a really great way to start with slide guitar playing. But today I'm just going to give you guys an introduction of the technique and a way to get a good sound, which is honestly 75% of the battle. So the best way to start with slide guitar, the way I started, was grabbing an open tuning like open E. You can also use open G, open A. I kind of think that open E is the most common, and it's pretty easy to convert from standard tuning to open E. But grab an open tuning and just kind of start experimenting. Because the thing with slide guitar is it's kind of a difficult thing to feel, especially on electric guitars with lower action. That's why guitars like this Resonator are really great, because they have a kind of higher action, which is going to give you a little bit more leeway between the strings and the slide to get a good sound. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the left hand. One thing that's paramount is putting enough pressure to get a solid note without putting too much pressure and getting the sound of the frets. So you're going to want to experiment and find that sweet spot between not really getting a good tone or having too much pressure and kind of dealing with the sound of the frets. So you're just going to, kind of take one string, maybe your D string, and play around with it a little bit. Just try different amounts of pressure until you get the tone that you like, and then we'll move on from there. So the next thing we're going to talk about with the left hand is using the either 3 or 2 fingers. You could go either way. You can put your slider on your 3rd finger or your 4th finger. I kind of tend to do both depending on the situation. But using those 3 fingers, you're going to want to be muting behind the slide at all times, because especially when you're playing acoustic, you don't want all those notes ringing out and kind of adding noise to what you're trying to do. So really make sure that when you're... I usually use the back of my 1st finger just to kind of slide along the frets and mute anything that's happening that I don't want making noise. So then the other half of good slide guitar playing, I think it's paramount to use your fingers. Especially when I'm playing acoustic, I kind of tend to use a thumb pick, which you can do or you can kind of ignore. I like doing it because it kind of gives like an extra amount of attack to the string. It's going to make your slide playing louder and more clear, which especially when you're playing with an acoustic guitar, it's kind of tough sometimes to get the projection that you want out of your slide tone. So always use your fingers. It's going to give you more control over which notes you're going to be playing. And then the other trick is you really want to be using those fingers while you're picking. You're also going to be wanting to use those fingers to mute the strings. So if you're doing a single note lick, you want to use your fingers to make sure, first with your left hand, you want to make sure there's nothing ringing out behind the slide. You're going to want to use your right hand to make sure that the notes you're playing are the only ones that are ringing out. So there's a lot of different techniques. Everyone kind of does it differently. But as long as you keep in mind the muting with your left hand, the finger picking with your right hand, and the muting the strings after you play them, you're going to have a good start to getting a good slide sound.